Right, I'm sitting here with Rudi du Plooy, the Hamilton West candidate in the current 2020 elections for New Conservatives?
New Conservatives.
New Conservatives,
Yep.
yeah. I couldn't remember whether it was new or just Conservatives. So it's New Conservatives.
New, yeah. As in brand new.
Yeah. Your East Side one is reasonably new. You're not quite. But, yes, it's an interesting time with our election. It's been put off for another month, which is understandable. It's interesting times we've got at the moment. It's interesting that there's an election in 2020 because, it looked like 2020 was the year that everything went wrong, pretty much.
I hope it's not a continuation of that, eh?
No, that's the hope. But then I suppose if we're careful and to some degree we don't get too blasé with it, we should be able to keep things under control and get back to some sort of normality eventually.
I think what is happening is that, and it is a concern, and that is that it's the measure of uncertainty.
Yeah.
People actually really don't know. I mean, you don't know if you wake up tomorrow morning and suddenly we will be at level 3.
Yeah.
Or will we go back to level 1? So nobody really knows. I can't really plan meetings to interact. But the thing that is true is that you need government to be realistic and to be truthful with people. Now, I think that's an aspect that we are lacking in the current dispensation.
We can forgive a lot if we can be 100% certain that we're being told the truth.
Yes, absolutely.
We can be a lot more
Absolutely.
patient. That's a classic one in sales that I learned years ago was don't bullshit the customer. Tell them the truth. If there is a reason why you can't do something or can't do it right now or have to give them wait, just be straightforward. Don't make up excuses. Say, oh look, I can't do anything. We've run out of stock. We won't have any for 2 weeks. That's it. Rather than coming up with some lame excuse.
Exactly. So I think this is partly what we have. We don't get the exact story.
Yeah.
And when you have, and this is the difficulty that we have, now, in the absence of truth, conspiracy theorists abound.
Yeah. In the absence of truth, conspiracies breed like wildfire.
Oh, So you hear about some guy on a bus that went from here to there and went to the Hamilton Gardens and he talked to a frog in the pond and it becomes absurd.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have to find ourselves, go back and migrate back to truth. I expect government to be truthful with us.
The slight handicap there is also the fact that over the many generations we have developed an inherent distrust of government to some degree. So they don't have to hide something major for us to distrust them. The slightest feeling that they're not giving us the truth and the proportion to the untruth to our distrust is massive. Right? Most people, if I lied to you about something and it wasn't a big deal, it was relatively minor, you go, oh yeah, didn't tell me the truth on that, but who cares really, it's no big deal.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
With the government, it's a case of that minister said something that was untrue. So now we can't trust anything he says.
Exactly.
Right?
And it's like that.
Yeah.
The human mind does that. So what I say is, because I have to analyze and I have to look at what is going on in terms of COVID. So what I see that we do when COVID raises its head.
Raises its head, yeah.
So what do? We go into lockdown the whole economy, the whole country. So I go and I say, how realistic is that? How many times can we do that? By doing this, will we eradicate COVID-19? The answer is no. Because as long as we have a border and we have people coming into the country and life is
Yeah.
normal, we will have COVID.
Yeah, you reduce its spread because it's natural that the less contact you have with people, the less likely you are to come
Likelihood.
into contact.
But we cannot eradicate it.
Really, it's a temporary measure until some medical or scientific solution comes along
Well,
in the form of like a vaccine.
Vaccine or
that
a
sort
thing.
of-
Now, the vaccine, again, will not be a miracle, will not be a magic wand, cannot deal with all cases of COVID-19.
No.
Okay. And cannot stop it.
Yeah, and not everyone will be able to take a vaccine.
Exactly.
Because there are some people that, for various medical reasons, just like current vaccines, can't
Correct.
take certain vaccines.
Yeah. And so the efficacy of the drug is limited to whatever, and the
Yeah.
research is very sparse at this point in time. But that's one aspect of it, and the people in the know are saying 2021, yay. So can we afford to have our borders closed for that? Can we afford to be restrictive in traffic flow across the borders? Can we stop business flowing from
Yeah.
here to there to everywhere across the world, which our dairy industry relies on, etc., etc. But so what I'm saying is, we cannot, as a country, afford to have this type of restriction. So we've got to learn to live with it. We've got to go back to really normal,
Yeah.
because we cannot lock down every time. As a country, financially, we will not survive. So that is not the answer.
Yeah. I think also we need to look at how we do things a little bit differently.
Yep.
We've been, over the generations, well, not so much generations, but over the decades, from when I was a kid,
Yep.
we've become more and more dependent on foreign tourism and foreign students, right?
Yep.
Which is fine, but we need to start looking at the fact that we may not be able to put as much reliance on that as we could in the past. And we need to, for instance, start looking at New Zealanders going on holiday in New Zealand and how the tourist industry will market to ourselves, rather, because a lot of our tourist industry has been marketing itself to Asians and Americans and things like this, right? And as the tourist population had changed over the years and from different parts of the world, as China became more wealthy, we got more and more Chinese tourists and things like this. They did adapt to change and focus their business
And their strategy.
model to those people.
Yeah, of course, yes.
Now those people are not there. Your target audience is New Zealanders, so we need to go, well, okay, New Zealanders aren't going overseas to spend their money on holiday overseas at the moment, so maybe we should target Kiwis going on holiday in Rotorua or wherever it happens to be as well, because we are going to have a period where the borders are going to be locked down, or locked down to some degree. We may loosen up eventually as time allows, hopefully. We will eventually. It's just a case of how that's going to be managed, because you can reduce incoming tourists or people from some countries that are high risk while they're high risk. It's like not allowing people out of Auckland while Auckland's a high risk zone. But the rest of us, you and I can go to Rotorua right now. We just can't go to Auckland.
Yeah, exactly.
Eventually Auckland will sort itself out and they'll be back down to level 1 and we can go to Auckland again.
I don't share your enthusiasm.
Not that you really want to go to Auckland, but
Yeah,
maybe
we're
maybe
not allowed-
Auckland being isolated is
You're not allowed to say things like that. not on live video, no. So cancel that remark. No, but I don't share your enthusiasm for lockdowns, because the reality of it is that we will have to open the borders. The reality is that we'll somehow have to live or die with this thing.
It does have to happen eventually. We're lucky in the fact that we still can send goods across the border and receive goods across the border, but at some point, physical people have got to go across the border, just to do the selling part and do the deals, because human beings are face-to-face people.
You
We
sell
like to do it.
a product, some sort of wonderful machine
Yeah.
to some guy up in Fiji,
Yeah.
and it breaks down, and you're the only guy who can fix it. You must get on a plane and go there.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of our world. We've gone away with jet travel. We've gone away from isolated little island, and this is where you stay.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to go anywhere, you got to
You got a shipload of goods every 3 months or something or other.
Exactly, and you were so happy, yay. So we've gone away from that. So we've gone from a little island to part of the international community.
Yeah.
And we can't stop that. Now, you talk about tourism. We're all, as a party, we're all for and keen for our tourism industry to be revitalized.
Yeah.
And we're saying that there's a big market out there. Now, if you had to go, and I hear what you're saying, no, but they must market to locals, and that may work. That is if your locals can afford to spend.
Yeah. And that's the other
that
big
your
thing.
international guy can do.
Yeah.
So, and that brings us back to a whole new
And it
other
really
dynamic.
it does become a short-term solution.
Totally.
Because it's
Totally.
it's like shopping locally rather than buying online overseas. It keeps the money local. It keeps the local businesses hiring staff and keeping staff employed. Now, but we can't live our whole life being re-isolated from the rest of the world. We do have to go back to having foreign dollars come into this country,
Absolutely
be that by selling product or having people come here and spend money. Now, we need to develop a way to control that in a way that's safe. So you've got dealing with the COVID situation inside New Zealand. You've got our borders shut down to stop the virus coming in, well, in theory, stop it coming in. But at some point, those borders have to be open. So we have to find a way in which you can open the borders, but still keep things safe. Now, that may be limiting people from certain countries that are high risk to start with. It may be changing screening systems. Like the whole experience of going through an airport is definitely going to change. That's a given. It's going to be different.
So,
and it's gone through changes. It's gone from just wander through the airport and check in to now there's all sorts of security measures because of terrorism threats and things like that in the past. So this just looks like, to me, this is the next evolution of airport experience is going to be created by the influence of COVID. It will be different. That's a foregone conclusion.
I think what is also important is because I've done a lot of research and unfortunately, the moment you do research and it's counter to what is the popular mainstream, so then you're a conspiracy theorist. So let's conspire now. The test that is currently being done, I think I've been on the website and had a look at what the government says about it, and it talks about the efficacy of the test, and it's in perfect conditions, in laboratory conditions, it's 95% or something like that. So it's not perfect, but what I also understand, and that's now not on our website, what I understand is that the test cannot identify. There are three things, which one of them is a common flu, and then it's at H1 whatever it is, and then COVID.
Yeah.
The test cannot identify which one it is.
Oh, okay.
It just says you have it.
Oh, okay.
So you could have the flu. This is the way I understand it. So that takes me right back to where I'm saying, can we just have honesty? If there is doubt in the test, tell us. Just tell us as people. So
that way we're more prepared. So if you get the test, if you do the test, and it comes up as positive,
correct.
Okay, I don't need to fear that my life is about to end. I can go, well, yes, it's a high possibility it's COVID, but I might just happen to have a flu, so I have to look at how I feel and go, does that compare with having the flu or a cold, or does that compare with possibly COVID?
COVID, correct.
And not panic about it, because it is frightening. As soon as you're told that there's something wrong with you,
can you imagine?
It is frightening.
This thing is deadly. Make no mistake about it. It is deadly.
The other thing that's really confusing for people with it, and this is where a lot of the conspiracy theories and stuff probably come from, is the fact that it is possible for someone to get COVID, have mild symptoms and barely notice they've had it,
Correct.
get better from it,
Yep.
and not even know they've had it.
Correct.
Right? And then there's the other extreme, where it is possible for someone to get it, go to hospital, go to ICU, die.
Die. Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Now, the fact that people die from it is fact.
Yep.
The fact that a large number of people have died from it already is fact.
Right.
People comparing it to other illnesses and death rates of other illnesses
Correct.
is rubbish. Because
Motor car accident, blah, blah, blah.
the dangerous part of COVID is its invisibility phase of,
Yep.
2 weeks, where it's pretty much invisible, yet you can be passing it on. Like most other illnesses, even the common cold, someone comes to visit you with the common cold and they caught it yesterday, you pretty much know they've got the cold. You can pretty much tell that they're not well.
Yeah.
Right? COVID, you could be wandering around for a week
Not
plus,
know it,
and not even be aware yourself that you're.
And like you say, you can have it and recover and not even know that it happened.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is you could have caught it, passed it on to others, recovered,
Yep.
and not known.
Yep.
You know, and this is I mentioned this. That I'm a blood donor, and I
Okay.
donate blood every month. I do platelet donation,
Right.
and I said, why haven't they started doing things like, yes, with the blood donor's permission, etc. Another tick in a box. At blood donating time, because they take a bunch of test tubes of blood to test. They have to test blood every single time for a bunch of things to make sure it's safe to pass on to someone else.
Okay.
Why not at the same time add to that test for COVID antibodies?
Okay.
Because there's two good reasons for that. First of all, there is a treatment to do with using blood transfusion from people who have got the antibodies,
Okay.
right, as a treatment for people in ICU and stuff like that.
Yep.
And it also would mean that if the antibodies show up in the blood test, and you can go, oh yeah, I must have had it, right?
Yep.
You can then start thinking about that. That would explain a lot about why
the
such and
reemergence.
such, why my neighbour's got it, and,
Yeah.
and all this sort of thing. And
Yeah, and he's in hospital.
yeah, and also it makes it easier to track the antibodies, because if you have a blood donor who's got the antibodies,
Yeah.
and the antibodies keep showing up,
Yep.
then you know that lasts. So therefore, any vaccine or something should last. Whereas if someone has antibodies for say 6 months,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden they're not showing up in their blood, then you know that your ability to
Fight the
it
disease. Yeah.
reduces after a period of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it would be like certain other things. What is it? The TB injection you get. Well, we used to
You
get
gotta
as a
have
kid.
a booster or
You get a
something.
booster
Yeah,
every,
yeah. Yeah.
and things like that. So,
Yeah.
and that's the other thing with the medical side of this is potentially with COVID, they might come up with a vaccine.
Yep.
Well, they will eventually. That's probably highly
They'll
likely.
make money out of us.
But it may be the sort of
Oh,
vaccine
my.
where we need to get a booster every few years. So
Yeah.
there is aspects to our lifestyle that will change from the point of view of that.
Yep.
I hope we never have a situation where masks in public are
Mandatory.
compulsory, because I don't think that's good or necessary. Because look, we've got people walking down the street, lots of space. There is no need,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yes, I can understand on public transport.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense because you're very close to people.
Yeah.
You don't have any
Yeah.
options, and things like that. But anyway, back to other things to do with the election, because
cool.
this COVID thing does start
Oh,
to
we
get a
can't
bit
solve
boring
it.
after a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah. We can't solve it. Yeah. No.
But I can see that from your perspective, the important thing is we need government that is completely transparent and honest about everything.
Yep. Totally.
While I think also giving advice to people how to deal with that honesty.
Correct.
So
Correct.
you tell people something, and then you need to balance that off with advice so that they don't, because otherwise you get these people, this is where conspiracies come from, they take that honesty and run with it to the extreme. And this sort of thing. So yes, we need that.
Yeah.
But what
The
else?
one thing we don't want is we don't want people to fear something.
No.
Kiwis are incredible people, and they when there's a problem, they can solve it.
Yeah.
She'll be all right, mate. It will be all right.
Yeah, you need enough of the she'll be right
Yep.
to not panic, but not too much that you don't get
That
off
you're
your
not
ass and do
realistic.
anything.
Exactly.
You know, you need to go, oh, COVID's there. Oh, logically, do I need to panic? No. Yes, someone turned up at my door with a sniffle. I'm not letting them in the door, right? They can stay out there, you know. And that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you don't want to be so slack that you don't bother to take any precautions.
I think so. Yeah. Another interesting thing, and then we can step off this COVID thing. Now you're well read and well everything else. Okay.
Thank you.
As long as you're not well expired, that's fine. So you get COVID. Okay. Now you've got it. What is the treatment?
Yeah, that's the thing is
There we go.
they're still not 100% on what the best treatment is.
So what is the treatment? So yay, I got it. What is the treatment? You
Yeah,
know, when
and
they come up
because you can get it at different levels, the treatment's going to need to be different.
and what
Because
is
you
it?
need to be able to evaluate: is this person got it and going to suffer majorly from it, or are they a minor sufferer? Like a friend of mine joked. He said, like when the original lockdown happened. Skateboarders might be a bit much for the audio.
Wonderful.
But when the original lockdown happened, a mate of mine said to me, because I'm a photographer, he said, "You're going to suffer not being able to get out and take photographs and stuff like that." I said, yeah, it's going to be a bit annoying because it happened at a time when there were, you know, things that, like for instance, it happened right at the peak of the mushroom hunting season.
Okay.
And a friend and I had a plan to go and take some photographs of a particular mushroom, try and find one and photograph it.
Right.
That was a bit of a pain in the ass, but anyway. But it wasn't that big a deal, and I discovered that technically I could live in my flat for 2 weeks and never walk out the door. I've got enough in there to live for 2 weeks
Yeah,
and
but
not
you
walk
can't
out
live
the door.
like that forever.
No, but the thing is,
Can't do that.
also I have the personality that can handle staying by myself.
Yeah.
And
Can you imagine being locked down with your wife and 6 kids,
yeah,
and 2 cats and a dog?
see, I'm single, so I can just spend 2 weeks gaming.
No wonder you could survive, eh?
But the thing is, I realised that
Yep.
when you get these people panic buying and all these other things,
Oh,
I would go out and I would, if the queues weren't too long, I'd go to a supermarket and I'd look for the things that I preferred to get. And if they had them, they had them. If I knew I had enough at home, all I was doing was replacing what I'd used. And if I didn't get to replace it today and had to do it tomorrow, that wasn't a big deal. I didn't need to stock up on huge amounts of stuff.
Yeah.
I'd buy a little bit extra if I could from time to time, just so they had reserves, so that I knew at any point I could go into lockdown. So if something happened and I had to be isolated for 2 weeks, and this is what I think they need to think about. Yes, there's a problem with people who are being isolated in hotels and motels and stuff coming from overseas, but I think they need to understand that there are people out there who take that responsibility seriously, and if a testing centre said you need to go into full isolation for 2 weeks, I'd say, well, I'll do it at home. Because I will just shut the door, put the chain on the door, and no one comes in, right? And I'll just isolate. I'll just remove myself
Other
from
guys don't
society
do
for 2
that.
weeks.
Other guys don't do that.
No, but the thing is,
Yep.
I know I could, and I know
Yeah.
that I will stick to it.
Yeah.
Yes, I might need someone to check in from time to time to
See if you're
do
still
do
alive,
odd
eh?
errands. Well, to get the odd thing I might need. But effectively, I could go into self-isolation for 2 weeks at home
Yeah.
and successfully do it without... And I'm blunt enough to, if anyone turned up at my doorstep, to tell them to piss off for 2 weeks because I'm not accepting visitors. It's like, I'm in isolation, go away. You know? I've done it on days when I've just had too much of the world and I've decided I'm going to have this weekend to myself. I'm going to shut the door on Friday night.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to open it
But
until
sometimes
Monday.
that is a good idea.
And everyone else can bugger off.
Yeah, no,
you know?
that is good. Sometimes you need a breather.
Because nowadays with online stuff, you can still communicate with someone electronically.
Yep.
So it's like, yes, I'll communicate with you electronically, but I don't want to have to get dressed up and face you. And I just want to sit here in my underwear at my desk and...
What a thought.
But, yeah, so COVID's something we're going to have to deal with, and I think it's going to impact on a lot of things. Even with the election, it has moved the date of the election.
Yep.
We may find, maybe not this election, but we may find we veer more towards either electronic or postal voting in the future, depending on how things go.
Yeah.
It's a bit late for them, I think, to do
They
postal
can't get
voting
it up now, no.
for this one, but it will. Voting booths and voting places will be different.
Yep.
Because the lines will be further apart.
Correct.
And people will have to actually plan to do their voting a little bit better.
The last minute stuff.
Because you either you don't want to be going and having a 2-hour wait in a line just to vote when you could have gone earlier in the morning.
Exactly.
And had a 5-minute wait.
Yeah, people need to get out earlier and as early as they can.
Yeah, it's like the supermarket. I pretty much know that my best days to go to the supermarket are Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
Because I find that's when the supermarkets are least busy, least queues, etc., etc. And that's good for the workers because it puts less stress on them.
Yeah, true.
And I think so. It's going to impact on a lot of things. But now that we've solved the COVID problem.
We solved it.
We sorted that one out. Let's move on to the next one. So what other...
Vote for Rudi.
What else does the New Conservatives, and in particular yourself, stand for? Is there anything in their policies that is more important than others that you are standing for Kiwis? Because that's the other thing I must mention to people. You're actually from South Africa, aren't you?
Are you holding that against
originally? No, they seem pretty reasonable people. My experience with South Africans seems pretty good so far. So you're from outside of New Zealand, running for office in New Zealand.
In New Zealand, yes.
So you have a slightly different perspective than someone who's been brought up here. You're also old enough to have been around for the run through when apartheid was law, through to the stopping of apartheid, due to the then the recovery after that.
Correct.
Where basically people stood up and voiced their objection or their concerns about what had happened during that, and recovered from it to develop. I'm not saying every country's perfect, but you've seen that. Now in New Zealand, you can look at New Zealand from a different perspective.
True. Yes.
Because we don't know, as a Kiwi, at my age, and 2020, born in the 60s, I don't truly know, and most Kiwis don't truly know what it's like to live in an environment of true racism.
Yeah.
You get people talk about racism in this country, and I'd love to see some of those people back in time to 1960s, 1950s South Africa.
Yeah.
Right, and get them to see what it's truly like. Well, yes, we do have these problems, but they're not quite the same as they were in places like that at that time. There's a bunch of other countries that had it worse. You just take pre-war Germany and how Jewish people were treated, things like that.
Yeah. You know, so let's wind back the clock. Yes, I learned a lot of stuff in South Africa. I formed part. I was the first non-racially elected councillor for Johannesburg City Council.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the year 2000, and so I was part of that.
Okay.
And it's really because I have a heart for people.
Yeah.
And I don't care who they are, what they are, where they come from. I have a heart for the people.
Yeah.
And this is my driving force for being involved in politics in Kiwiland. So why? And people say, Rudi, why don't you just get yourself a boat and? I mean, what do you need this stuff for? I mean, you really don't need this. And I think the honest truth is, yes, I don't. But I'm compelled to do it because I have to make a change. I have to be part of the solution.
Yeah.
As I see it. Okay. So what I see is wrong. I see governments doing stuff. And what do governments do? Governments get beyond themselves, I believe. Okay. And they get to a point where they do things in total opposite to what the people want.
They effectively forget that they're employed by us to manage the country.
Exactly. So what they do is because when I vote, my vote is for that person or that party to represent me in Parliament. I hire them for 3 years.
Yeah, it saves me turning up to vote on issues every week.
Yeah. Otherwise, we'd all go down to Wellington and go and vote, which is crazy.
Could you imagine, be it council or central body, if every week every single person had to sit down and listen to a bunch of discussions and then vote on an issue every 2 or 3 times a week?
So those guys represent me. And when they do the opposite of what I want, that's when I go and I say, "You fired. You fired." What? And you know what?
It's pretty much that. Look, you're doing it wrong. I think I can do better than you, so I might as well do the job.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so all I can say to people is that I'm a wild one. I come from Africa. We ride lions and we have snakes as pets. I mean, really, I'm a wild one. So I'm the sort of person that the first thing I want to know is how will this law benefit the everyday Kiwi?
Okay.
How will it impact his life? Will it make it better? And whether you're talking about prisoners or whether you're talking about drug addicts or whether you're talking about prostitutes or whether doesn't matter. Unborn children, it's shocking what has happened to unborn children.
Yeah.
It's shocking. It's crazy. How can we even contemplate? I mean, even the world is talking about New Zealand. Oh my goodness, New Zealand's got this terrible. That's one of the things. When I did the interview for New Conservative, I said, when we get into Parliament, is there a law that you'd repeal? I said, yes. They said, what is that? I said, the abortion law.
Okay. Yeah.
For the simple reason, it's the most cruel thing to abort an unborn child.
Okay.
It's cruel. It's cruel. And when I thought I knew everything about abortion, because I've seen the videos and I've seen how they pull apart a baby and put the parts on a stainless steel thing, and that's now. I've seen all that, and I thought I knew everything about abortion. And the other day, a guy made a video, and in the video, he goes into his hothouse, and he's got some budding fruit or something there. And he talks about abortion, and he says, now here, this plant is going to have that fruit, but right now it's not a fruit, but it's got the potential.
Yeah.
And then he said a startling thing. He said, we are robbing this country of youngsters with the potential to become great. And I went, wow, I never realized that that's what we're busy doing. We are stealing the potential of unborn children to achieve greatness in Kiwi land. Wow, man. Can we even think to do that? It's cruel. It's wicked. We cannot, So I'm very up about that. And So what does Rudi say? What does Rudi du Plooy say to people in Hamilton West? Rudi du Plooy says, listen, if you wanted a real wild man up in the beehive who will act in your best interest all the time, I'm asking for you to employ me. 3 years. You give me 3 years, I'll go in there. If I don't get it right, if I don't do what you want me to go and do, if I don't represent you, then fire me. It's as simple as that.
Well, that is effectively summing up what elections are about.
Exactly. So if I can't do the job...
sums up the concept of democracy.
Exactly. So if I can't do the job, then you fire me.
Yeah.
In 3 years' time, say, Rudy, you did a lousy job. You never turned up at the beehive. you sat in the back and you slept all the time, you're a bum.
Yeah.
We're going to fire you. Then that's great. But I will promise you one thing, and that is I won't let you down. When I say X, I don't mean Y.
Yeah.
And when I say to you that this is what I want to do, that's what I'm going to do. So, effectively, how can you decide whether New Conservative is the right party? You go onto the website and you look at our policies. We actually have policies.
Yeah.
Yes, I've heard that there's some parties that don't have a policy.
And that's one of the
exciting.
things I think that's important is people need to look at the policies and work out basically, does this party have policies that fit what you want or your view on life, etc., the way you think this country should be run? Because I think too many people are making their decisions without looking at policies.
Yep.
The other thing is that we mentioned before that at the moment we know it's a foregone conclusion that our country's going to be, the major party in our country is either going to be National or Labour, one of those
Correct.
two, right?
Yes, I agree with you.
So the other thing you have to work out is the party you're voting for going to work well with one of those?
Correct.
And which one are they going to work well with? So you can go, you go, okay, I'm interested in the New Conservatives.
Yep.
So which party they're going to work well with, and does that party have policies I can put up with as well? Because no party is 100% perfect.
I can tell you, and we're on record,
Yeah.
the New Conservative will not work with Labour,
Okay.
with the Greens, and New Zealand First.
Okay.
We will not work with those three parties.
Okay.
That's a fact.
Yep.
So, this is a pre-election promise,
Yep.
and we're on record. Our deputy leader has said that, and it's on record, and that's how it is. We will not
Okay.
work with those
Well, so
parties.
that makes it nice and easy for
Yes.
people because then they can look at your policies,
Exactly.
they can look at National's policies and go, out of these,
Yep.
what percentage of these policies
Yep.
are exactly what I want or near enough to exactly
Near enough to what you want. Yes. Exactly.
And that's the essence of it is,
Yep.
is do I agree with this policy, the way they're putting this policy forward, etc., and is the number of policies I agree with for this party greater than any other party?
Exactly.
And
And that's how you make your decision.
I get sick and tired of people choosing the candidate they vote for based on personality.
His smile.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
And nothing against any party, but you just take our current government, for instance. You can't just choose based on how, I don't want to say Jacinda, because it's not just Jacinda, Labour full stop,
Correct,
have
yes.
dealt with this current COVID crisis.
Yep. Yep.
Yes, that is a major factor.
Yep.
Whether that's good for them or bad for them,
Correct.
we will see.
I think it's bad.
But how they've dealt with it
Yep.
is important because that is an example of how they deal with a similar situation in the future.
It's knee-jerk.
Yeah.
It's not policy. It's knee-jerk. You cannot run a country on knee-jerk stuff.
No.
Look what happened with the Christchurch shooting. Suddenly, law-abiding Kiwis with guns became criminals. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. That's knee-jerk
So
policy.
I think this could be another election that it becomes even more important for people to think about their voting.
Exactly.
Rather than just make a decision because it's the way I've always voted, or my family's always voted, or because that candidate looks good, or because that candidate is turned up to all these things or whatever.
Yep.
They need to look at two main things. Are the policies that they put forward what I want?
Yep.
And are they a politician that I can have confidence
Exactly.
in doing their job?
Exactly.
Because I think that's another big one is you don't want to vote or let someone into government who is going to do a half-assed job and not, because effectively your job, if you were to get elected,
Yep.
your job is to ensure that as many of your policies get put into place as possible.
Correct. Yes.
B, that you stand up for the people, in particular the people in your area.
Correct.
But so when there's decisions being made, it's look, Hamilton West should be involved in that, you know.
Exactly.
but most importantly, that you don't sit back and do nothing.
Yeah,
that
correct.
if something is going wrong, that you have the balls to stand up and
Correct.
say, hang on, that's wrong.
Yeah. And
We
you'll-
don't agree with that.
And you'll know all about it when I'm around.
Yeah.
And that happens. Because I'm like that. The tall trees catch the most wind.
Yeah.
And that's great. And that's probably why my hair's going all over the show. But that's what I am. And I want to tell you something that I need to be truthful with you about politics today. Now, when a political party...
Well, it's more you being truthful with them than me.
No.
Because that's the
correct.
big thing, is
Yes.
be truthful with them. So they know where you stand.
Everybody watching this video needs to understand where I come from and what I understand in terms of politics. Now, in the years yonks, when nobody had brains and you entered into a contract,
Yeah.
you did a cross.
Yeah.
That was your signature
Yeah.
because you had no ability to write.
Yeah.
So when we started to vote, we made a cross. It actually became a contract between the voter and the person he's voting for.
Yeah.
That was his signature.
Yeah.
And they could hide and it could be anonymous. That's why it was just a cross.
Yeah.
Okay. And then later clever people made it a tick because they don't want to cross because that's naughty. But so we had a tick. So for me, it's an absolute contract
Yeah.
that I have with my voter. I am obliged to talk to him. And that's what I will do. I will talk to people. I have an open door policy. People need to come to me and say to me, Rudi, I think you're making a big mistake, or your party's making a big mistake. And I will need to listen to the people that have got the contract with me.
Yeah.
Now, when you vote in the past, and
Yeah.
we voted for, I don't know, red and blue. We're actually the new blue.
Yeah.
New Conservatives, that's why everything is new. You voted, and they did what they wanted, irrespective of what you wanted. So what that means is it is a total disrespect of you as the voter.
Yeah.
They couldn't care less.
Yeah.
And I don't want a government like that, and I don't want you to be part of a government like that. You cannot, this time round, vote the way you used to. The Labour Party of today is not the Labour Party of 20 years ago. Ask anybody. They will tell
No,
you.
it's
changed.
totally different than
Totally
when
different.
when I first got my first job.
Yep.
The difference between the Labour Party then and the Labour Party we've got now is completely
It's a
different.
different thing.
National has also changed a lot in that time frame.
Yes.
You know, if people are old enough to remember what a national government was like back in the around the 70s, 80s period, and what a Labour government around at the same, they're different sorts of people and parties.
Correct, yes.
But you mentioned before about people coming in and open door policy and talking to
Yes.
people. That comes back to the whole concept of a government being open and honest.
Absolutely.
And the fact that people can
Absolutely.
feel free to openly share their objections
Absolutely.
with you,
Yep.
whether or not you agree with them or not,
Yep.
or are comfortable receiving it. The fact that someone can tell you what they don't like, what they think you've done wrong, and you're willing enough to sort of go, fine, that's what you
I
think.
messed up. Yep.
I will look at that and let's discuss this and explain to me why you think I did wrong or whatever.
Correct.
Or made a wrong decision or whatever. And that way, as a politician, you learn about the people, but you also learn about yourself.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And you also get a chance to go look at it and honestly go, well, that person was right. That was wrong of me to do that.
Yep.
I shouldn't have voted that way, or
Whatever it is.
Whatever
Yep.
it is.
Yep.
I'll have to do differently in the future, and I think that's one of our biggest problems with any form of government at the moment is
The chasm.
politicians not being willing to accept critique from the public
And there's no interaction.
and action on it.
There's no interaction.
Yeah.
They sit there in the beehive like Lord Muck on toast,
Yeah.
and they decide, and don't talk to you. I mean, how is that possible?
Yeah.
So, in that regard, that's what makes me different.
Every now and again we get the odd politician who actually is really good with that.
Yep.
And I think we just need to get more politicians like that.
Correct.
And we can get a government functioning a lot better.
Yeah.
You know, you look at, was it Sweden or Holland or one of those European countries,
Yep.
when it comes to the whole COVID thing, the government didn't put in much in the way of legislation. They just asked the public not to do certain things. And the public go, okay,
all right.
The government asked, we can see it's for the better good, okay, we
and
will
you can
do
decide.
it. Right? And the fact that the government was open with them about it and go, oh, this is why we need to do this.
Different.
People were concerned about their fellow citizen.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing is politicians
Okay.
probably got about 10 or 15 minutes.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
right.
Now we can wrap up. I mean, it's
Yeah.
fine. It's all good.
Right. We had a little bit of a battery issue there, so I'm back with Rudi, and we just sort of probably wind up now because there's not much charge left on this thing.
I'm still pretty charged up.
Yeah, we could probably go on for quite a while solving the world's problems, solving New Zealand's problems.
Oh, we can do that in
but
one afternoon.
I think that's a key part of politics is we need both people, ordinary public people, and politicians to have discussion more with each other
Yep.
to sort out the issues that
The
need
real
sorting
issues.
out.
Yes.
As you said before, we don't want politicians to get above their station.
Yep.
We don't want them to think that they're above us too much. They are doing a job for us to help us get on with our lives while they run the country based on effectively what we want them to do.
Correct.
Based on our election. Right. But we don't want them to forget that they are here at the behest of us. We vote them
That's
in,
key.
and they're supposed to be working for
That's
us.
3 years is the contract.
Yeah,
And they better be sharp in those 3 years.
yeah.
That's it.
And I think that's why it's 3 years, actually, is because it's 3 years. It's enough time for you to do something,
Show. Yep.
but also show whether you should be voted in next time.
Next time around.
And so
Yep.
on. you
Because
know.
I come back and I say, this is what I achieved. This is what I did.
Yeah.
Can I please have another extension?
Yeah. So was there any last pieces you wanted to quickly go over to help people make a decision as to why they should vote for Hamilton West people should vote for you
Yep. That's
and the new Conservatives?
what we've got is we've got effectively, like we discussed before, in Hamilton West, ideally we've got a red party, we've got a blue party, and we've got a new blue. That's really the only three parties of any substance for Ham West. So what you need to do is you need to decide whether your red and your blue did what you wanted, or did they ignore you? Did they treat you with disgust and disdain and thought that you were just another idiot and they can do what they like? And if they did that to you, then the new blue, the new Conservatives, is your choice for Ham West.
Yes.
Simple as that.
And I think National and Labour are still, I think, adjusting to the concept of MMP.
Oh, yeah.
They still think
Yes.
that it's first past the post, and once they get in, they are fully in charge.
Doesn't work
And I
that way.
think we're getting close to a time where we're not going to have just two main parties.
Correct. Yes.
Because people are starting to vote, put their two votes for a third party,
Yep.
and that is going to, and it depends on the National Labour whether they catch on to this or not and start working according to the idea of MMP,
Yep.
which MMP is essentially a collection of parties get together and make an agreement to form
Make
a
the
government.
That's exactly what it is.
And it's an agreement to discuss how the country is going to be run,
Yep.
and come to some agreement on that fits with all of them as to how that's going to be done.
Yep.
And therefore, our government is going to be a mixture of parties that can work together.
Correct. And when we go to Parliament, the New Conservative, one of the things that's non-negotiable is we want the abortion bill repealed.
Okay.
So whoever we make a deal with, that's on the table.
Okay.
And if they can't do that, then there will be a stalemate or whatever. But
What about the two referendums we've got? First of all, we've got the euthanasia bill. How do you guys sit on that?
we're opposed to it.
Okay.
Just because, and we had that discussion, thin edge of the wedge, and with these type of things, it never stops where it is. It always increases.
Yeah.
It always becomes laxer, slacker, and we just open ourselves up to a lot of abusive legislation.
Yeah.
And I really truly believe that nobody, and we, and certainly not politicians, should ever act like we're God.
No.
You know, that there's a line, and you don't cross that, and just leave it as it is. So we're opposed to that. And the other one
is the marijuana bill, legalization of marijuana.
Yeah. Well, when you want to get high, I think you must go to the Sky Tower, and that's the only way I think you should get high. We're opposed to that. It's a real strange country we're in.
Yeah.
Because it's on the table, and there's an agreement with, I think, is it the Maori Party, that we will ban smoking, and yet we want to legalize marijuana. It's a real strange place. But as the bill, we're opposed to
and
it.
I think that's where people need to differentiate the
Absolutely.
difference between recreational and medical.
Yep.
And it's clear that you guys aren't for the recreational bit.
Yep.
But if the medical part is done to the same level or same standard as other medicines, then that would be fine.
Yeah, and it's again, there is the indications, in other words, what it can be used for.
Yeah.
And the contraindications have to be very clear, and people need to know that the drug can do this or whatever. You can't operate a car, you can't do this, you can't do that. And heavy machinery, all that sort of stuff. It's got to be an absolute prescription drug.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
And good luck in the election.
Oh, we're gonna have.
However, the campaign is going to work.
Can you imagine? That would be a lovely upset for the new blue, new Conservatives to come in and just take Ham West.
That would be.
I'm a street guy. I like to meet the people. I want to be with the people. I want to do what the people want. I'm a people person.
I like turning up to the events and photographing the politicians at the events.
Yep.
Because you get to, as I say, you get to see the whites of their eyes. You get to really see them in action. You see, you can sort of, looking through a camera lens, I can tell when they're faking it and this sort of thing. And I like that. But and it would be a shame if that didn't continue.
Yeah,
I think it will continue. It's just how big an emphasis on
that. Need that. Yeah.
Anyway, it's getting a bit. Oh, the rain's coming in again.
Look at that! My goodness.
Yeah, but yeah, as I said, good luck and thanks for your time. And
thanks, Lance. It was excellent.
Keep banging away at the election.
We're going to do.